So we're going to talk about Web3 and the future of data storage. We have a lot of big names on this panel: Google, Microsoft, Oracle, and Protocol Labs. So we're really seeing the integration of Web 2 and Web 3 right here. My name is Maggie Love. I'm co-founder of Web3 Cloud, and I'm director of ecosystem and partnerships. We build custom compute and storage infrastructure for Web3 protocols. And now I'm going to hand it over to my panel to introduce themselves.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Widmann. I run Google Cloud's Web3 strategy. I've been in the crypto space now for about 6 years. I got my sort of crypto stripes as a securities lawyer representing a lot of projects during the ICO boom in 2017. I sit on the board of a number of companies, and I'm also an adjunct professor of law on business and cryptocurrency regulation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rakhmilevich. I'm at Oracle Senior Director of Product Management for our blockchain solutions and technology. We've been in the blockchain space since about 2017-18, about 5 years, with a blockchain platform offering in the cloud, also on premises, for enterprise customers. It's a permission blockchain predominantly focused on Hyperledger Fabric as a foundation with a lot of low-code development tooling, management tooling, orchestration, integration capabilities, analytics, etc. And it's an enterprise-grade platform with a couple hundred business customers running it, as well as a number of ISV solutions.
Awesome. My name is Mackinlay. I lead the engineering and research team at Protocol Labs, working across IPFS, Filecoin, libp2p, your kind of core Web3 protocols that help power decentralized verifiable storage.
Thank you, Molly. Hello, everyone. My name is Vassilis. I am the Web3 lead for strategy and business development at Microsoft. Microsoft has been pretty active in the space for the last years, but I would say the last 12 months specifically, we have been much more intentional on a partner-led strategy. I had the opportunity to be earlier on the stage with Anchor, and looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Thank you so much. So a few of you touched on this in your intros, but where is your organization playing in the decentralized storage space, if at all? And if not, where more broadly in the Web3 space?
You want me to go first? I'll take the lead. So really, our goal at Google Cloud is to be the default space for developers to build in Web3, right? I think a lot of the pain points that we've observed over the last 3 to 4 years really happen at that developer level, right? It's starting companies, it's getting familiar with on-chain data, it's standing up the infrastructure, right? RPC nodes, validators, et cetera. And then there's a whole host of other issues that actually relate to storage. If you think about sort of how to get and scale horizontally your node infrastructure, oftentimes, we actually just saw this weekend with one of the outages. One of the difficulties was actually pulling snapshots of the full ledger in order to update validators to get them sort of back up and running and in consensus. And so our team's focus is really about solving all of those problems, both big and small. Part of the way that we're going to do that is offer a managed offering, which we call the blockchain node engine. It's essentially going to abstract away the infrastructure layer, allow people to deploy an RPC node on our infrastructure, and it's self-healing. So essentially, a DevOps team wouldn't need to manage it. We take care of it. And the other side of that is really sort of maybe the benefit of storage, which is we don't just keep these things in perpetuity for no reason. We keep them so that we can review them, analyze them, draw analytics, apply AI and ML learnings to them. And so our team's also working on a data storage platform that will sort of pipe in on-chain data from multiple protocols and make that available to developers sort of with the click of a button. So that's what we've been working on. Some of this we're building first party. A lot of it, as Vassilis said, it involves partnership, right? And so that's what we've been spending a lot of time, is finding those right partners in those spaces that augment our offerings so that we can go to market jointly.
Very cool. Really awesome to see Google getting so involved in the space.
All right, so just a brief introduction. I said Oracle started in this space about 6 years ago. In 2018, we've introduced our first cloud platform. And really, our goal has been to make adoption of blockchain technology, broadly speaking, easy and quicker for enterprise customers, right? For businesses that need to run the applications together with other members of the ecosystem, whether it's supply chain, financial services, healthcare, public sector, government, education, retail, a lot of different industries where they have, if you will, permissioned consortiums. And the goal was to try to make it easier to integrate with identity management, provide solutions that would withstand the rigors of business-critical applications, 99.95% SLAs that are financially backed, high availability, decentralization across multiple cloud regions around the world, easy development tools to create applications for customers themselves who build custom applications, as well as ISVs that are creating vertical applications on top of the platform itself. But over the last couple of years, we started seeing a shift into more of a Web3 direction, where customers started being interested in leveraging tokenization, whether it's fungible tokens or NFTs, and they kind of fall in two areas. We see, customers in media, entertainment, retail, telcos, sports leagues, etc., doing basically what they want to make fan engagement or consumer engagement models, rewards programs, right, more engaging using NFTs. And that's not very different from traditional kind of NFT environment that you have in public chains. There is another set of customers that are actually using NFTs in business applications. So, for example, representing electronic bill of lading in supply chain, or parts traceability, or luxury goods that need to be tracked from manufacturing through retail and maybe even aftermarket resale. Electric vehicle batteries, there is this now movement around creating passports to track the batteries in your car throughout your car's useful life, but even after that, when they get repurposed and recycled and so on. So we're seeing kind of business applications, and we're seeing consumer applications. And for consumer applications, they want to go beyond the permission blockchains and create hybrid environments where public chains offer liquidity on secondary markets. So we've been doing a lot of work in the integration space, actually creating capabilities to run atomic transactions across EVM-based chains, Ethereum, Polygon, etc., and now Hyperledger Fabric-based chain, but also broadening that as members of Hyperledger Foundation, we're looking first at the technologies like Hyperledger Firefly, Hyperledger Cactus, etc., as interoperability gateways between different chains. And we're beginning to see customers adopting that. This morning, in fact, I had an interesting conversation where somebody wanted to bring decentralized identity in a multi-chain environment, combining permission chains and public chains, but with a decentralized identity wallet actually backing up the user identity, and then Web3 authentication wallets included in that for different chains. So we're seeing that hybrid environment evolving, and that's very exciting.
Very exciting. And I think we need to remember, if you're more crypto or blockchain native, that the ecosystem does include a lot of these large players, and they are participants in the coordination game. Molly?
I imagine a lot of people in this room are probably actually pretty familiar with Protocol Labs. We started out in 2014 creating IPFS, which was kind of the first content addressing protocol that now underpins, I think, most NFTs at this point, along with all sorts of decentralized applications, decentralized websites, et cetera. Also built libp2p, which underpins Filecoin, Ethereum 2, Polkadot, and a ton of other blockchains, and decentralized applications as well. And then, culminating with Filecoin, which is a decentralized, verifiable storage platform. And that brings decentralized storage to all sorts of applications, all users of IPFS who want to have verifiable, incentivized long-term storage. And then the most exciting thing, which is actually coming in 2 weeks, on Pi Day, we are releasing the Filecoin Virtual Machine, which is an Ethereum EVM-compatible smart contract programming environment for everyone to launch applications and smart contracts that interface with decentralized storage and make it programmable. And we're super excited about this because it unlocks all of the builders in this room to start programming with verifiable storage, having things like self-repairing data storage contracts, starting to have staking protocols that can meet the storage provider demand for collateral to secure the storage that they're putting into the Filecoin ecosystem, and can ease bridging and collaboration between all of the other amazing Web3 ecosystems that we collaborate with heavily. And so I think Rich was talking about all of the importance of actually storing Filecoin and other blockchain state in it's verifiable and provable means of long-term storage, and making that really accessible so that groups like Solana, which is already starting to store their data on Filecoin, can do that using smart contracts as well.
Great. That's super exciting, by the way. So Maggie, I think I want to go back to your actual question. So you said, what is a spectrum, right?
Yes.
So at least at Microsoft, we don't see it as a spectrum.
Ooh. We
see it as every innovation is welcome, right? The industry is evolving. Decentralization is here to stay. That's definitely true. That's our thesis. So the way we see it is we want to be where our customers find value. If our customers find value in the decentralized storage, which many of them do, our job is to provide that value either through partnerships or through first-party products, as Reid said. So I don't see it as a spectrum, and I think that also builds on your other comment, Maggie, which you said, Web2 companies are here, are in the Web3 space. And we are here because the value is here, the business is here. So we don't see it as a switch, Web 2 versus Web 3. We see it as I would say, a coexistence and a hybrid model where we learn from the Web 3 natives, and Web 3 natives can scale with the capabilities that most of the Web 2 companies have. That's, I would say, our thesis.
Yeah, I really like that framing. And so a question I have is, Rich, you touched on this, but data is clearly incredibly important so we can build all these other use cases on top of it. And so what does Web3 or decentralized storage potentially unlock for use cases that potentially traditional storage models do not? Molly, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. One of the things I'm most excited about is this idea of data DAOs, of actually taking communities that care about a data set or want to kind of like band together to collectively govern the data that they're storing or refining and growing a collection of data, and can recur value from that over time, can unlock access to it to specific other parties, and can grow that in a decentralized manner. And so it's, what do we want from decentralized data storage? We want something that's going to empower smart contracts, going to empower DAOs, going to empower communities to actually own their data, recur value from their data, and govern it over time. And so, you want a multi-sig to be able to have access to collectively storing data over time, increasing the value of that data by maybe doing compute over it, running machine learning models over it, governing access to other parties. And so I think having those data storage primitives tied in directly to smart contracts and to our on-chain identities is really, really important to actually make it accessible to all of the builders who want, permanent storage of NFTs on-chain from their NFT minting contracts. And you're not going to have that if you have to pop out into doing a KYC process or have an individual's credit card hooked up. And if that individual's credit card gets turned off, then, oh no, your collective community-governed data set suddenly is offline or no longer being stored. I think you can see this with like the power of Hen, the NFT community that was using IPFS for its data storage. And despite that organization going under, this is now one of the most well-preserved NFT datasets in the world because so many different communities were able to come together and preserve the NFT data that was being stored there. And so now there's, I don't even know how many replications of that NFT community data set. And so you can actually achieve really great resilience through enabling many decentralized parties to come together for that preservation.
And if I may jump in, by the way, I think you're absolutely spot on, right? And these are just the first use cases, the data DAOs and data dignity that we can see. Imagine all the other use cases that you can build up on top, right? So we all know that the latest 2 or 3 weeks, LLMs and ChatGPT is very much in the news. Imagine DAOs being able to train LLMs based on their own data that they have decentralized, and they can build their own, apps based on the data of the DAO. So, we're just scratching the surface. So many use cases that we cannot even think of right now, right? But I think it goes back to this idea of symbiosis, right? Web 2 companies, Web 3 companies, decentralized technology, AI. When you put all those things in a mix, like magic can happen. So totally with you on that.
Like there actually is literally a stable diffusion smart contract being deployed on FEM at mainnet launch.
I didn't know that.
That's going to allow you to do those machine learning applications on top of
my theory stands. Okay, good.
So cool. It's happening.
Yeah.
The future is already here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just also suggest, from a business or enterprise perspective, right, where there is much more significant data sovereignty requirements, data confidentiality, obviously for business data and so on. What we're beginning to see is what's really interesting from a regulatory perspective. There are requirements for transparency and traceability and so on. And so the companies that generally would want to protect all of their data, beginning to look at how do they separate the kind of traceability data they need to provide, whether, for example, sustainable sourcing, ethical sourcing, kind of things in electric vehicle supply chains. Batteries use a lot of cobalt that sometimes comes from really bad places with child labor abuses and things like that. So some of that traceability data, or in pharmaceuticals, the requirements by FDA to provide greater and greater levels of traceability for the pharma products, right? Usually at a container level, now it's at the individual pillbox level in the next few years. Food, FDA also just promulgated some requirements for, under the Food Safety Modernization Act, to be able to provide traceability for certain food products across the entire chain, right? From early suppliers, from farming all the way through processors, distributors, and so on. So some of that traceability data is going to become more of a public data that actually will be, I think, provided through decentralized storage. That's where businesses, I think, are beginning to look.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's already said like the intelligent takeaways on this point, but maybe the last thing I'll say is that this actually decentralization becomes a solution to the problem that regulations are trying to solve, right? So a lot of these regulations around interoperability or data sovereignty and sort of like privacy-related regs, they're trying to get at this concern around who has control over the data, whether that resiliency is actually built into the process. And so if you can point to a collective group of actors, all who have perhaps competing interests at times, but are interested in at least preserving this data set, I think you do create a little bit of a solution that the laws are trying to solve, but may not be able to do so in practice. So I think that's the other unique opportunities, not just new business models, but also new ways at creating market efficiencies around how data gets stored over a period of time amongst a distributed group of actors.
Yeah, to Mark and Rich's point, there's also the visibility and creating that transparency also allows us to start optimizing for things that users really do care about, like how green is the energy that's powering our large-scale storage solutions. Like in stuff like Filecoin, you can have the visibility into the energy that's flowing into your data storage, and you can have all of that transparency of how green is this particular storage provider, how green is the Filecoin network, and so you have that kind of like that proof transparently through the entire system. And I'd love that to become like a standard that we have across all of our data storage solutions, whether they're Web3 or Web2, so that we can be really optimizing for a greener future for everyone.
We do the exact same thing, and we were industry leaders in that regard. But that's one of the areas where you have to kind of, I think, Vasily, I agree with you in some ways, but in other ways I disagree, which is it's not just about seeing where people are now. It's also about like kind of cutting ahead and sort of creating a path that's well lit for developers to sort of see that opportunity. If you don't create that environment for them to incubate and build in this with respect to this problem, you're going to have to wait for real big trailblazers to come through, and that doesn't always happen. So I think there's an opportunity there for sure.
And I think that's critical because we have to be there as providers ahead of where the customers are, right? So the customers might need something 6 months, a year from now. We can't say, okay, let's start building it and deliver it yet another year or 2 years ahead. So we're actually doing a lot of work in our blockchain program, in our ecosystem with ISV partners that are leading some of those capabilities. There is one project right now we're working on, in fact, on the transparency of the green energy with a company that provides a platform for solar installers and homeowners who actually install solar panels to manage the projects and actually look at the generated data and so on. They want to take it to the next step and create solar regs, basically, right? Renewable energy certificates that can be put in the market, but they want to be able to show exactly, if I'm saying, let's say, have a solar reg for 1 million kilowatt hours, where does it come from, right? And, while it comes from this neighborhood, and there's, maybe 100, properties, 100 individual homeowners that have solar panels on their roof with these addresses, where the actual generation comes from, and that's what feeds in the solar regs. That end-to-end transparency and visibility is becoming really important because right now, green energy is not very transparent. Right? People, enterprises, companies that are buying those regs can't necessarily always go and easily prove that what's supposed to happen in the back end actually happens. And I think that needs to change.
That's exactly where Filecoin Green is buying those recs for an individual storage provider in a specific location, so you can show that the solar panels in your deployment go and fund the storage provider next door to have actual green energy flowing into that system. So it's really awesome to connect it end to end.
There's a lot of ability to prove things through the Filecoin network, like your data is still stored, like your data is green. So all of that transparency, I think that Filecoin is really leading the way in that. So we're out of time, but anything that all of you want to leave with the audience before you go about data storage, or they should come find you?
No, I think we can all agree that it's time to build, right? And that's why we are here. That's why you're all here. And hopefully next year, when we will all be back in Denver, the whole industry will be much more mature. But I'm very excited about the future.
Microsoft will just send all their AIs to.
That's
come
exactly
down
the
panels.
case. Yes.
Perfect.
That's right.
Okay. If nothing else, thank you so much, everyone, and find us and talk to us after.
Sure.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Thanks.